Minister for Health, health representatives that are here, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank, first of all, the Ministry of Health for inviting me along to speak to you today. Now, after I was asked to stand up here and speak, I thought, NCDs, okay, I'm not an expert, I know what it is. Let's get online and really, become an expert. So I got to the websites, and I was struck by pages and pages of figures. And every page I went to had a more, alarming figure on it. So here we go. Here's some of the figures. 17 million people die each year of heart disease. I never knew that. 7.6 million people die of cancer. 4.2 million people die of respiratory disease. Big numbers. A further 1.3 million die of diabetes. And all of these NCDs account for 80% of total NCD deaths. Each page I went to had more graphs and more statistics and more numbers. So those numbers that I've just rattled off don't mean much, but they add up to 31 million people worldwide. Each page talked about deaths and prevention. But I found one site that I came to, and it told me that the 4 common risk factors for NCDs are tobacco use, physical inactivity, the harmful use of alcohol, and poor diet. And then I stopped and I went, okay, this is easy. I get this. It's easy. So simply put, the facts and figures did nothing for me. They didn't engage me at all. But I realised if I gave up smoking, did more exercise, drank in moderation or didn't drink at all, and ate fresh, healthy food, I'd be doing the best thing that I could possibly do to ensure that I didn't end up as being one of those statistics. So these 4 simple bullet points had more impact on me than any of the statistics, any of them that I read. But I'll come back to that in a minute. In 2011, the Prime Minister spoke on the depth and seriousness of non-communicable diseases, addressing world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly. He highlighted the urgent need for action by the international community to curb this global epidemic. There is no denying the seriousness or the impact NCDs have on our community and the global community. World leaders have been given unprecedented commitment to addressing the global public health crisis caused by NCDs. However, in spite of the various advances in modern medicine and health measures introduced to combat NCDs, it's important to note that the media play probably one of the most important roles and are the forgotten heroes at times. So, from the Ministry in Health and Government's perspective, we need to deliver information that has an impact on people. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. It has to have an impact on their thinking process and above all makes them question and challenge unhealthy eating habits. Whether this is to stop smoking or drinking or start eating healthier or get serious about exercise. Everyone in this room understands the seriousness of NCDs. The question is, how do we reach out and convey that message to the general public? And here's the challenge. But first, let's identify the problem. And I think it's pretty simple. News stories about NCDs all too easily become stories about statistics. Stories about facts and figures alone are just not compelling. So simply put, they're really boring. My journey looking into NCDs is a classic example. All those facts and figures, millions of people, more graphs, but it was those 4 simple bullet points that really made me stop and go, this is it. Forget the facts and figures. NCDs affect individual people, families and communities. But how often do we read a story that says 35% of the population or 20,000 people? Even when the statistics are shocking, these stories have difficulty resonating with readers. I would never consider myself to be included in the 35% of the population. Therefore, it's really easy for me to flick past and ignore the story. For example, the fact that approximately 82% of deaths in Fiji are linked to NCDs is a shocking statistic. But even here, the impact is limited. A reader has trouble connecting with the percentage. Again, the number means nothing to me personally. Stories that are about people and not about numbers are inherently more interesting. And of course, you as reporters want to write stories that are appealing to your readership. So to answer the question of how the media can go beyond stories that read like fact sheets is simple. Place ordinary people at the centre of every single story you write about. You have to put a human face to the problem and, where possible, use powerful images. As journalists, it's your job to go out and find these stories and report on them. If the Ministry of Health is telling you that there is a problem with X, go out and find out how X is affecting the lives of the ordinary person. If the ministry is telling you that there is a rise in Y, go out and find out how that rise is affecting the community. Now, of course, we know that there are some statistics that have to go with each story. There's no denying that. But I would say that one number or one fact can make a good story. Don't overload the story with too many figures. It will either confuse the reader or, in most cases, just bore them. With such an approach, your stories will complement the work of the Ministry of Health by reinforcing their message with real-world examples from ordinary people. So, if we can think in terms of these 3 simple steps: focus on one fact or figure, make the story human-based, draw an experience of an individual or a community, point the reader in the right direction. If possible, loop the unique experience back to the general population and educate the reader. Use examples or information for preventative measures. Too little I read in stories, I can see the shocking headline, but where can I go for help? What can I do? Is there a hotline number? Is there something there? Nobody is reaching out to me to help me. You're giving me the bad news, but you're not telling me how I can actually fix it. I also want to stop on this whole NCD, the tag NCD. We might want to think about rephrasing the term NCDs into a term that people understand. I was talking to a friend last night from Australia, and I was telling him I was coming to make this address this morning, and I was talking about NCDs, and I'm NCDs this and NCDs that, and I'm rattling off. I said, I'll listen to the beginning of my speech. And I got into the first bit, and he said to me, what's an NCD? Now, he is a very educated man, a businessman, who had no idea what an NCD was. In Australia, they don't talk about NCDs. So maybe it's time that we had a look at how we're talking to the general public out there. Maybe it's preventative disease. I get that better than NCDs. The most important thing is we need people to understand what an NCD is, and by changing that language, perhaps we'll start getting through to more people. So, colleagues, we can only achieve our desired objectives behind this workshop if we understand the genuine threat that NCDs pose to each of us in this room. There can be no compromise when it comes to our own lives or the lives of our children or our children's children. Your role in the decisions you make in this room in the next 2 days is vital to sustaining a healthy Fiji and a productive Fiji. I'd like to once again thank you for asking me to speak here today. I wish you well in the next 2 days. Thank you very much.